I'm Jeannie,
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Nikki from Tyrion's Landing,
a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the one you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in
3,
2,
1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
I am the Green Arrow.
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune. I am the chief editor tonight. My name is SP, and your other award-winning reporters for this episode number 213 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
Whose brilliant idea was it to let an ancient demon out of his bloody cage?
That would be Sarah. And Michelle.
Well, if this really is the end of the world, then I choose to surround myself with you guys.
And again, that is the great Captain Sarah Lance. This podcast is recorded on Thursday, October 11th, 2018, live on www.geeks.live.
That's right, and this evening we'll be discussing Legends of Tomorrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the past week that could and very well will impact future episodes of Legends of Tomorrow, as well as the greater universe that includes The Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, Vixen, Constantine, and everything else. And it's all starting up, so expect a lot of potential spoilers.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com, where you can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
Thanks, guys. Michelle, why don't you go ahead and break down the season finale of Legends of Tomorrow for us?
This episode is called The Good, the Bad, and the Cuddly. Season 3, episode 18. It originally aired Monday, April 9th. It's directed by Dermot Downs. This is one of the directors who's done an episode of each of the Arrowverse, done 5 Supergirl, 7 Legends, 9 Flash, and 3 Arrow. Written by some very well-known names, Mark Guggenheim, who has written 16 Arrow, 10 Legends, and 3 Flash Forward. Phil Klemmer, who's written 10 Legends, 3 Forever, and 12 Chuck.
Very experienced team, and it was a good episode to boot. We'll get into it in a second. In the meantime, we're going to run down the ratings for this week. Now, this was the season finale for Legends of Tomorrow, but it was not for the rest of the shows in the week. So this was April of 2018, April 9th. Actually, the Legends of Tomorrow aired to a total rating of 2.16. This is live plus 7-day DVR ratings. All of these are. On Tuesday, the next day, on the 10th of April, Flash aired the 17th episode of the 4th season, Null and Annoyed, to a total viewership of 3.47 million. And following Flash, Black Lightning aired the 12th episode of the first season, titled The Resurrection and the Light, to a total rating of 2.40. And on Thursday, our flagship show, Arrow, with the 18th episode of the 6th season, aired Fundamentals to a total rating of 1.89. And that's pretty low given a 7-day live plus DVR number, but it is close to 2. So we're going to have to take it. But let's get back to Legends of Tomorrow at 2.16 for their season finale. How do you guys think about that, Chris?
Solid. When you're beating the flagship show or the originator, that's not too shabby. So kudos to the Legends team.
Michelle, what do you think about those ratings?
Considering where Arrow was in the season after the whole Civil War thing and the Diggle fight, makes sense that that number is kind of low. I'm really happy the 2.16 for the finale. I think a lot of people watch on the app and on Netflix. I have a friend who watches all these on Netflix. So I really think a lot more than 2.16 million watch this show.
That might be true, and I'm just hoping that they can monetize those viewerships on Netflix. I don't know how that works, how the shows actually get paid for being on Netflix. I know on the app they're paid via the advertisements, which you cannot fast forward through, and I'm fine with that on the app. am absolutely ecstatic that they make it free the next day to watch on the app. Of course, you can only see the last 5 episodes, but that's better than your normal TV viewing that you just had just a few years ago. So on demand is fine with me with the last 5. That's basically the Hulu model that they had started a few years ago. So I'm cool with that. All right. The good, the bad, and the cuddly, Michelle. We talk about the theme of the episode, often relating to the title. So what is the theme related to the title for this season finale?
Well, it's everyone. The good, the bad, and the cuddly, which we will talk about what the cuddly refers to. Everyone coming together to kill Malice or Malice, you fools, whatever you want to call it. It's the demon.
Don't
Everyone
forget
comes
Phallus
together in
was also
salvation.
thrown out too.
Yeah, everyone's coming together in Salvation, North Dakota, 1874, because we even get Jonah Hex, and we get Helen of Themyscira.
They're very, very good. Not Helen of Troy anymore. Helen of Themyscira. She is the warrior princess now.
We get Kawasa from the new timeline because they corrected the 1992 invasion of the village. So now we have a Kawasa that's alive and sharing the totem with Mari. So she comes by.
She doesn't have the water totem though.
No.
Yeah. So that's important to know.
Ava, who makes up with Sarah at the end, and Jax. I think it's very interesting how the writers also made it 5 years. Like Mick says, hey, you've been gone only a couple months. And Jack's like, it's been 5 years for me and I'm married and I have a kid.
We didn't get his picture of the wife, but we got a picture of the baby. That's so cool. And I didn't tell Chris, you are the cell phone master on the Gonna Geek show right now. Were you able to discern what kind of cell phone he had?
I honestly didn't pay attention to see what cell phone it was. I can go back and rewatch if we need
because
to.
It's 5 years in the future for him. So I would think that you'd be interested in what kind of cell phone technology is available 5 years from now.
One would think we'd have our foldable smartphones by then.
It didn't look like a foldable smartphone to me.
Foldable. Knowing our luck, it's like Windows Mobile in their back somehow.
It could be. It did have a case on it.
Well, maybe with a new kid, he needs to save on money and he hasn't been able to get a new phone in 5 years.
Could be an LG G5. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this episode is my favorite. It's just pure joy from beginning to end. And of course, we start at a low point when we're back in 1992 Zambeze, where Sarah's like, we'll let Malice out and then we'll fight him. And that first fight, SP, how does that first fight go?
It does not go good. And I've been saying this all along. They need to have team fighting skills because they're all fighting individually. They're all throwing their own heat at him. And by heat, I mean, the Chicago mobster ordinance. That's what I mean by heat. So they're all throwing their own thing at Malice or whatever. By the way, it's interesting because I was watching this on Netflix tonight before we recorded on the elliptical via the Netflix app, and I had the closed captioning on. And only once did it say Malice with a Mallice. And that was the one time. Every other time for the remainder of the show, it was Malice with a US. So even though they clarified that it was Malice, you fools, they still kept on calling him Malice for the rest of the episode. Anyway, so they're all throwing their own heat at him. They're not getting anywhere whatsoever. So they ended up retreating. As a matter of fact, you know what? I was thinking about this. So Amaya charges and then she gets thrown to the side, right? And then Nate goes out to get Amaya. The rest of them are just standing there like fools. I mean, they're literally twiddling their thumbs like, oh, what are we supposed to do now? They're not providing covering fire. They're not going to get shelter on their own. No, they're just standing there like, oh, nah, I don't know what we're going to do here. Nate can go get Amaya and then we'll just stand here until they're told to retreat.
Tactics aren't their strong suit.
Never was.
Yeah.
They're a chainsaw.
Yes, they are a chainsaw.
Well, this first fight ends on a sad note, doesn't it, Chris?
It does, continuing his trend of being Rory in Doctor Who. Mick dies. Arthur Darvill's character dies. And he gets to go out like a boss, though. He gets his jacket back. He looks like a badass. Gets to have a moment where he confronts Mollis himself. And what's the line? Something effective, for an immortal time demon, you're awful afraid of something. I can't remember. It was a good line. I wrote it down and I left my notes upstairs when we came to record the podcast. So that doesn't help me. But it was a good way for him to go out. But man, it was really quick in that episode. Like, they killed him within the first, 5 minutes of the show?
They did. Captain Rip Hunter, they killed him off early. And if you think about it in terms of you're trying to end the show on a positive note, they try to do that with the montage right when his life was flashing before his eyes. We'll just call it that, because I don't really think that was it. But they were showing different things. And they really showed him in a positive light. And they reminded us that he had a wife and a son that were killed way back in the first season. And he wants to join them. And this is the benefit of what Rip's sacrifice really is that he actually gets to join his wife and his son in the afterlife. So we are supposed to feel good about that. And I think in general we are. And even Sarah, she was like, goodbye, Captain. And she knew what was happening. The torch was truly passed on to her because Rip's not around anymore to do anything for him.
Well, sort of. Remember, we're in a time travel show, so there's nothing saying that they can't go to a different time where he was still alive, or he was still jumping through time and stopped at that time to interact with him. For most intents and purposes, he's probably dead for story purposes, but they always have a back door to bring him back if they need him.
If they could ever get Arthur Darvill back in Vancouver to film anything, I would say yeah, but I just don't think. I think he's going to continue his film career either in London or down in Hollywood. I don't think he's coming back to Vancouver. I think that's the real crux of whether he's dead or not, is Arthur Darvill, the actor, is not going to be available.
That very well
anymore.
could be. But remember, when we did the news story on this ages ago when this first came out, there was something effect from Mark Guggenheim or one of the other EPs that said the door is always open because it's a time travel show. So there's potential. I believe you're right. I believe the actor himself is moving on to bigger and better things. But the fanboy in me has that little hope in the back of my head of, ooh, you could have Rip Hunter show up again.
As long as it's in the coat.
Yep. Oh, he's got to have the coat. The coat is awesome. That's like, the coat is his armor. It's like Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You can't imagine them without the coat. That's why it was so weird this season seeing him not in it.
That's true. I've only seen 2 seasons of Buffy, and yeah, that's the only way that I envision Spike. Long coat, yep. And then the white spiked hair.
He has curls occasionally, but he always wears that jacket. It is part of his mystique and persona.
SP, you're a big Gideon fan. What did you think of their last interaction?
It was admirable, basically. I think Gideon, played by Amy Pemberton, just got to get that name out. I think Gideon was, or voiced by Amy Pemberton, Gideon was trying to be majestic and gracious, and also just telling Rip basically what's going on. As a matter of fact, her last call out was, oh, by the way, there's 15 seconds before it goes critical. So basically she was telling everybody, you have 15 seconds to say goodbye, and that's it. And I think that was good for her to voice in at that point in time. She wasn't counting down. She was just warning everybody, hey, look, this is the last you're going to get to talk to each other. You got 15 seconds. So she did well. She told him that there was basically zero probability that he was going to survive this. And she knew what he was doing, and he knew what he was going to be doing to the Legends. He also knew the Legends knew how to fix it. They could get out of Dodge before it actually blew up and affected them too. So it was calculated. And the only negative effect was that it was fatal for him.
Sarah does have a good plan of using salvation as a point to retreat and figure out what to do. It's technically a time blind spot. But they kind of underestimate Malice. Malice is able to bring back 3 favorites villains. Again, it's all these little seeds coming back together. We've got Julius Caesar from the premiere, Blackbeard, of course, from the Earth Totem episode, and Dread Pirate Driway, and Freya.
Was she ever called Freya in this episode, or was she just referred to as Leif Erikson's sister?
Yeah, she was called the sister, but technically, it's Freya.
And called a nutter also, if I remember correctly.
Yes. from the Bebo episode. And then it's not just them, they bring an army. So this is our bad who's coming by. And the fight is actually like two parts. Of course, we got the first part where we've got, Sarah comes out, they've got this ultimatum. Mollis is like, give us a totem, so you die, blah, blah, blah. And I love how Sarah just comes out, get out of town or get hurt. And then Ava comes along with the horse and grabs Sarah. Like, that is such like Old West awesomeness right there.
Can you believe this is the first time I've ridden a horse?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then I was watching this second time through. It's very obvious it was a stunt person that was picked up. It wasn't actually Kitty Lotz playing Sarah Lance that was picked up. But hey, it worked for me. It was great. And they got to speed away from the charging army of hordes of pirates, of Romans, and of, what was the other one? Pirates, Romans, and Vikings. Yeah.
Mick got to fight in the bar. So we got a bar fight. They're in Salvation. There has to be a bar fight, right, Chris?
It's a true story. He's shooting soldiers left and right. They were Romans with guns. Makes it a lot easier when they're coming at, not guns, with swords. Makes it a lot easier when you've got a gun and they have swords. You can just put them down. Then Caesar tries to confront him and Mick just punches him in the face and makes a comment on his nose like, looks Roman now, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a Roman nose.
That's it.
What he said.
It was delightful.
And then Helen, I love the scene beforehand when she's with Jonah Hex and Jonah is like, this is a gun. This is how you aim it. And then she's just like, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And she gets to use it against the enemy. She's got a sword in one hand and a gun in another one. What do you think of her, SP?
It was great. She's in the middle of the big street, Main Street, whatever, in the big intersection. And she was taking on all comers. She was doing great, just like you would think of somebody from Themyscira, almost mirroring Wonder Woman herself. And the only difference would be that she didn't have the cool bracelets where she could deflect bullets coming at her, but she did well on her own. She ended up keeping the gun. I thought she was going to throw the gun down when she ran out of bullets, but she kept it. And then she picked up her sword and went on to fight some more. So she was definitely a force to be reckoned with. You don't need an army with the Themysciran around. You just need like one or two maybe, but she did well on her own.
Yeah, it was cool. I half expected to hear the Wonder Woman electric violin music that we know from the movie so much as she was doing it. I was like, come on, just give us at least one riff of it, but they didn't, and it made me sad.
Hey, if this is as close as we're going to get to Wonder Woman on a CW show, I'm happy. I'm really happy with Helen. I think they casted her well. It's really interesting. She only had 2 episodes, but you can actually see that growth in her. And she's like, I've learned how to fight on Themyscira, and you can tell. You can just like, yeah, I'm a warrior now. It's awesome.
I won't say she stole the show, but she definitely was memorable for the entire season. I hope we get to see her again sometime. She's a friend of the legends, and as we know, friends of the legends can come back at any time unless you're one of those stupid bird people.
They used to be baristas, one of them.
Thanks, I forgot, Chris.
I like to remind everyone every time this comes up because they never wanted us to forget, so I don't want you guys to forget. Hashtag never forget baristas.
Well, thanks to magic drugs, Amaya and Nate learned that basically the totem bearers need to form magical Voltron. As a fan of the reboot cartoon series, I love the mention of Voltron. Their first effort was not very good. It was like out of a horror movie.
And Mick had to dispose of that.
Yeah. Are we making a baby? Are we making a baby? Worst orgy ever.
Yeah, it was kind of Cronenbergish.
Oh my gosh. I mean, nobody was like stopping him either. He just got his gun out and started torching it. And then they all kind of looked at him. He's like, what? Hey, put it out of its misery or whatever he said. And yeah, exactly. That would, I can't believe
it's something I expected to see out of Rick and Morty.
Yes.
It's a
or Venture
Kluneberg.
Brothers. Or Venture Brothers. That
Yes.
could have worked.
Pretty much anything Adult Swim. It had a very Adult Swim feel to it. What came out of that?
Then they try again, and they have to imagine a being of pure light and love. Before it was formed, I'm going to have to admit, because they did the 80s episode and such, I almost thought they were going to do the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yes, I totally thought it was going to be Stay
I
Puft
thought so
Marshmallow
too,
Man.
but then I thought it'd be too expensive to get the rights.
Yeah, I actually listened to a Story Behind episode with Emily Prokop when she went into the history of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. There is no Stay Puft Marshmallows. Now, they did make them as a homage a couple of years ago, but there was no actual Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That was all just made up for the movie. I didn't know if you guys knew that or not.
I did not know that. But instead, we got Bebo, a huge, wonderful Bebo.
Okay, so no, not Bebo. This is Elmo, which is what Bebo was based off of. Funny story, when my air conditioning went out earlier this summer, I had to go out down to the storage area and empty that out so they could work around the furnace and stuff. This was actually in one of the boxes. So I was like, I wonder if it worked. And then I pressed it and it actually played a little bit. The batteries were winding down. So I had to replace the batteries, 2D size batteries, by the way. But yep, Elmo is what Bebo is based off of. I wish they would actually make a Bebo like Elmo, and I would buy it. I definitely will. But it's great to see Bebo. Bebo has been teased throughout the season, and it is fun just to see Bebo whenever he comes out. And I hope that Bebo is not going to go away. I know that they created this big giant Bebo who fought a little bit like, what would you say, Chris? Like Kung Fu Panda a little bit?
I had a vibe of that. I also had a very Matrixy vibe, especially when Bebo's kind of sitting there and waving the hand, like, just bring it.
Right. So he fought like Matrix or like Kung Fu Panda and took on the Mollis figure and was able to dispose of Mollis by bringing Mollis in for a cuddle. Bebo needs cuddle, and cuddled Mollis. And then they dropped from, I don't know, 3 miles up or whatever. And then poof. That was the end of Mollis.
I loved it. And this big blue heart comes along. I just don't know how to describe how perfect that fight and this ending was. Everything coming together all season. I should have seen it coming. You know, there were Bebo socks and the whole deal. He did keep coming back. And I love that moment when they're forming it. And eventually they're just like, yeah, all right, let's make it him.
Yeah. So Nate was like, Sarah's asked, oh no, who thought of, and they never say it during the process, but who thought of Bebo? And Nate's like, I'm sorry, you said pure being, and this is the only thing I could think of. And what's her name? Maya? Not Maya.
Sorry.
Zari was like, oh yeah, now that I've seen it, yep, let's do it. And then everybody's like, fine, let's do it. And they all formed the Bebo. And it was kind of interesting because I didn't know if there were going to be actually like Voltron and pilots within Bebo, like one person would take one of the legs, whatever. No, they actually, the 6 of them they transformed into Bebo. So all 6 of them became one with Bebo.
It was delightful.
I could just watch this hour of television. I think I've seen this episode 4 times or something. It's amazing. I loved it. It was one of the best hours of television last season. Just any show, really. It's just, oh my goodness.
See, and this is what I think that and we've talked about this before, but if you're listening to the Starling Tribune for the first time, first of all, thank you for listening to us. But second of all, we have talked multiple times about how this is the fun show out of all 4 or 5 shows now, actually, soon to be 6, where you have Arrow, Flash, Black Lightning, Legends of Tomorrow, and what am I forgetting? Supergirl. And when the new show comes along, it's been fun. Like first season Flash was really fun, but then it got dark. Supergirl was kind of fun, but then it got dark. Legends of Tomorrow, they kind of had a rough beginning in season 1, but after that, they just had fun with it and comes out on the screen. and it's a popcorn show. It's not a serious show, but I love watching it, and it's just become really good fun. Even up till the very end, when Constantine shows up on the Aruba beach, and you have Gary cosplaying as Constantine, and that whole scene, it's just fun all the way through. And then you're really psyched up for the next season. They really did a good job of this entire season. And they even made jokes about the hawk people, which is why I brought up the bird people earlier on. And they just do it well. And yeah, I could see why you'd want to watch this episode over and over and over. Whereas the season finale to The Flash, to Arrow, to Supergirl, I haven't seen those since I saw them the first time through. I'm not planning on rewatching it. Well, I might rewatch them right before I watch the season premieres like I normally do, just to acclimate myself a little bit. But it's not like you, Michelle, where you've watched it 3, 4, 5 times. I'm never going to do that with the other shows. With this show, I will.
Side note, Gary does a great John Constantine voice.
Yes, he does.
You're assuming that was Gary.
I like to assume it was.
I see.
One thing we have to mention is that Mollis wasn't Nora. Ray did something stupid, didn't he, Chris?
He used his big banana hands and punched oh wow, I'm Nate in the face. I'm forgetting everyone's names all of a sudden, and I apologize. But yes, he took Damien back in time to where they were getting whooped by the Damien who was taking the idols, and instead knock out his daughter as she's running away, and Mollis transfers his powers to Damien, thereby saving Nora so that she can partner with the Legends temporarily and then get taken away by the Time Bureau to hopefully escape at a later date.
So question for you, Chris, and Michelle, actually. Do you think this is an adequate redemption arc for Damien, or do you think the next time we see him, he's going to be evil again?
I don't know if we see him again unless it's just a consequence of time travel, in which case that's not the redeemed Damien we would see then. That is one that is prior to having his, oh, I love my daughter and must save her moment. So I think this is the end of him as we know him.
Well, okay, so I would normally agree with you, but time travel, what it is, he was picked up at some point in time before he faced Oliver in Star City to be actually killed. And he would have to go back into the time stream in order to make that happen.
This is
so
Damien after Oliver killed him.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
I
is
thought this was
Resurrection
before.
No, they resurrected him. Remember, that was the whole vampire episode. They resurrected him. He had a watch on it with Oliver Queen's handprints. So this Damien's already been killed by Oliver. So in the prime timeline, he's already dead. They just resurrected him and played around with it again and kept him alive. The one we had last season, or excuse me, the season before, was a Damien from earlier in time before he got his magic powers.
My mistake.
Oh, it's a time travel show. This is bound to happen.
Exactly. That's why we're here for each other. I think it is the way they wrote this season, seeing him actually go from, yes, I want Mollis to be in my daughter for my own purposes, and then realizing that his greed had gotten too far, and for him to actually see himself as a father at the end, I thought it was, touching. And of course, Ray gives Nora her father's time stone, which is how she gets out, because she is part of the next season. But those two, Ray and Nora,
It's almost good cop, bad cop, like goody two shoes cop and like evil bad cop, but they're great partners, and I hope we get to see them in the future. Although to create that tension that you could see on the show, I don't think they'll actually be partners. I think they'll be forced to partner up and in order to do some quests or whatever. And I will call them quests because we're heading down Magic Lane here. And I think that it's going to be fun watching them play off of each other. But I don't think that Nora is going to start the season in any way redeemed. I think she'll have to go through a redemption arc throughout the season, just like her father did.
yeah, she's on her way, thanks to Ray, like the episode in Berlin, when he does give her the stone. He does remind her, your father sacrificed himself so you could actually have a life, because her father took her life away because, hey, you're a young child, become possessed. And that's all she knew. So she finally gets to, find out who she is. Who is Nora Dark. She gets to find out.
I don't think she's totally found out, but I think she's found out that she is her own person and she needs to find out who that own person is versus the path that was set in front of her to become Malice.
Yeah, she has some freedom now because there's no demands on anyone. Dad, who died and abandoned her and left her to become possessed by demon, is gone. The demon's destroyed. So really, all she's got to do is escape and then find her path in life.
I have to admit, you know, Nora and Ray, they have great chemistry. It's really odd. Just because a couple is married or dating off screen doesn't mean it transfers on screen. And in real life, they are married. They're still like adorable. I'm not really a shipper, but I actually do want to see them get together.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. If you go, for instance, Tom Hanks and his wife Rita, right? So they are on screen a couple of times in different movies together. Sleepless in Seattle is one of them. And they are not a couple on the screen. As a matter of fact, they're just friends. You know, they're not actually even in remotely romantically involved. But you can see a minor chemistry between the two of them. This, with the two of them actually married, it's great actually seeing them on the screen. And I think a little bit of that is just how Ray Palmer is, you know, he's the Boy Scout. And it's just the way he interacts with just about anybody, but he gets intense at some points in time and really emotional. Like in this episode, he doesn't drink, but he takes a drink because Rip Hunter died. And I think that same sort of intense with how Nora is, you can just see it. He gets a little concerned in his face, and it's not just the happy-go-lucky Boy Scout. He's like, there's something wrong and I want to fix it. And that's very endearing to watch on the screen.
One thing I have to mention, I thought it was hilarious, Zari and Jonah flirting with each other.
Yeah, they're adorable. You're going to give me your hat? That's gross and sweaty, but kind of cute.
I'm trying to remember. The last time we saw Jonah, or maybe the first time we saw Jonah, was he flirting with Sarah way back then?
Not like a flirting. It was more of a sizing her up. I can't believe a woman can lead like this and fight like this.
Yeah,
it was more like that.
Okay, I'm sorry if I insinuated the fact that they were flirting and now they're not, or anything like that, or Jonah's a player. That's not what I meant. What I meant was I think that Jonah gets these respites of freshness from the outside world, and it's just not available to him in North Dakota, or is it North Dakota or South Dakota? I can't remember. Anyway, where he is, and it's North Dakota, Salvation, North Dakota. And I think that he's meant to be more than just the town sheriff, although he's great as the town sheriff, and that this interaction back and forth with somebody like Zari is just very refreshing to him, and he sees that there's more in life that is possible for him. So I think it's great for both of them, actually, because they seem to be very akin to each other.
You know, it doesn't seem like Jonah's giving his hat to just anybody.
No, I mean, it's got to mean something.
Do you think she is going to have Gideon dry clean the hat?
I don't even know, does Gideon have dry cleaning available? They do their own laundry in a laundry room.
I would have, since Gideon can actually fabricate something, she can fabricate a little dry cleaning box that they could use to dry clean the hat.
I guess that's possible. Or they could just stop somewhere in time and drop it off at a dry cleaner.
True. Do you think she'd do that, or do you just think she's going to leave it dirty?
Well, I mean, maybe that's what's happening while they're at the beach in Aruba. She's getting the hat cleaned.
No, it could be.
I'm sure it was high up on the list. You know, partying on the beach, that can't be that high up.
Party on the beach with your coworkers. I don't think I've ever done that. I mean, I've gone to tropical locations with workers, and that was for work, but I've never like partied on the beach with them.
Well, Mick's idea was not for them all to come with him. It was for him to go to Aruba. They just tagged along on his grand plan.
They've just been through a lot.
Yep, they had to pull time back together, and apparently they pulled time together, but they let something else out.
Well, they didn't do all the cleanup either, because they're like, oh yeah, Ava's handling all the cleanup from all the anachronisms that are left over. They're like, we did the big stuff, we're out.
Don't leave a chainsaw to clean up. Trust me on that. I've just used a chainsaw recently. You don't use a chainsaw to clean up.
But they're so much fun.
Yeah, I'll admit, it is fun to use a chainsaw. I have two of them.
SP, is there anything else about the episode you want to talk about?
It was fun. I really was anticipating watching this episode for weeks and kind of lamented every time we had to push it off for one reason or the other. And not the episode, but we had to push off finishing off the series because of, personal issues. But it is amazing, and I loved rewatching it. And I was just so intense. I didn't even mind the time on the elliptical as I was watching it. And I'm really looking forward to this next season of Legends of Tomorrow. It's one of my must-see TVs. I'm going to have to watch it shortly after it comes out. I don't know if I'll be able to catch it live with my crazy schedule, but I will be able to catch it within a day of coming out. And that's really the hallmark of must-see TV for me. So it was great. And I think the team was pretty good. And the only detriment to the year was probably the Maya thing. And in retrospect, where we were all thinking, okay, I can't believe we're doing this Maya Nate thing again, I think they had her back on just to fix the whole Zambezi thing, which was explained in this episode, because everything was fixed and the Zambezi wasn't actually destroyed, but things happened for the better after that. So I can't complain.
Well, I mean,
Chris?
They also did just completely destroy time to make things work out better for her. There was poor decision making that went into it that it worked out well for them in the end. But this episode was a delight. It was fun. There was a huge smile on my face when Bebo showed up when I watched it the very first time, and I smiled and chuckled throughout the entire final fight, especially at the end once they body slam Malice and you see them all reformed as humans spitting out feathers or fur rather, and stuffing. You're like, what just happened, kind of thing. It was tons of fun, and I loved the setup for next season with John Constantine. I've always been a fan of Constantine, so setting that up and putting it in place, I can't wait to see what happens. I think this next season's going to be tons of fun as they kind of do another twist on things and start dealing with supernatural things like fairy tales and unicorns that shoot rainbows out of their horns. I'm super stoked.
By the way, one last thing. If you haven't seen it yet, go to our YouTube video of this episode. I actually have a mug of Captain Jiwe spiced rum. I won't say whether there's actually rum in this mug or not. I do have rum in the house, so you can imagine if there is or not. But yep, the Dread Pirate Captain Jiwe actually exists in my house.
Like I said, this was an amazing series, a season of Legends. And my mom, out of all the shows, she asked me, when's Legends coming back? And it's like, well, not till the 22nd. She was like, are you kidding? Like, no. So my mom's not a geek like I am, but even this is her favorite out of all of them. Our flagship show comes back. Our next episode covers Arrow, Season 7, Episode 1, Inmate 4587. It will air Monday, October 15th, 2018. After surrendering to the police for being the Green Arrow, Oliver tries to survive in the prison while a new unknown vigilante emerges in Star City. It's directed by one of our favorites, James Banford, and written by the new showrunner, Beth Schwartz, and Oscar Balderrama.
Looking forward to that. Live from the Starling Tribune main news desk on floor 52 of Starling Tribune Tower, it's the weekly news roundup with award-winning chief news anchor Michelle Ely. And now, Michelle Ely.
Have a couple of Arrow news. Chris, someone got a promotion.
That's right. Kirk Acevedo has been promoted to series regular for Season 7. TV Line was able to confirm that Acevedo, who was the enemy in Season 6 in a recurring status, has been signed on full-time for Season 7. Diaz is going to come back in a different way than we saw last season, according to Beth Schwartz during the fall preview Q&A. He's going to be more of the dragon character from DC Comics. We're going to see a different side of him, and I think the fans will be excited about that. Kirk Acevedo was awesome in the role. They're twisting and making it more comic-based. I'm totally down with this, and congratulations to him for the full-time promotion.
And in crossover news, which if you've been following Stephen Amell on social media, he's been teasing things that they are actually starting to film. And one of the pieces that was revealed, it wasn't by him, it was actually by CW, and that is the first official look at Ruby Rose as Kate Kane in her full Batwoman costume. It is created by award-winning costume designer Colleen Atwood. The supersuit draws plenty of inspiration from the comics, from the flowing red wig to the mask to the dramatic cape. With her lips curled in a menacing grimace, Batwoman sports an all-black costume with a red bat symbol and a red belt to match her wig. Other hints of red, like the piping on her gauntlets and the ombre fade on her cape, complete the look. Wayne Tower, of course, looms in the background.
But not Queen Enterprises or whatever it's become.
Queen Consolidated then turned into whatever
Palmer
Tech, and then got turned into, well, who knows what. It's all, who knows? I can't keep track of these company changes. It's too hard.
I can't keep track of that costume. Did you see the costume, Chris?
It's pretty awesome. It's very close to what we've seen in the comics, and I can dig it.
I really dig that. I liked how they meshed all the colors in there and everything, and I'm looking forward to seeing it on the screen in the crossover.
I'm just glad it has sleeves.
Just wish that the Legends of Tomorrow were part of the crossover.
I'm beginning to accept it, especially since I learned just right as we were going to air, they're doing a wrestling episode.
Yes. I'm in. I'm sold. You've got me.
And, you know, honestly, I was thinking about the lack of the crossover when I was watching this episode this week, by the way. And basically, for them to have all of the fringe and old characters coming back into the show, it felt like a crossover to me. So if they can do something similar next year in Legends Tomorrow, I'll be okay with that. And just lament the fact that they're not going to be part of the CW big crossover with Batwoman. Oh, well.
And that is all that we have for the news this week.
But we do have some feedback, Michelle, don't we?
Yes. One of our tweets when we were talking about Ava was liked by the writer's room, the Legends writing room themselves. So thank you very much for liking the fact that we were talking about the show. Hope you realize how much we love it. And I was live tweeting during The Flash. The Flash premiered this week. And there's talk about the Crisis again. And there's been discussion about, is the Elseworlds a Crisis-esque crossover? And I tweeted out, I wonder if this Crisis has anything to do with this year's Arrowverse crossover. Black Adam at Starsaber_222 said the Crisis headline was still in 2024, so probably not. I replied, well, XS did make a brief appearance in last year's crossover, so maybe the thread continues. It might not be the full-fledged from the headline, but I just wonder if they're somehow building up to, you know, that headline that we saw in season 1 of The Flash. It came back on the premiere. So.
Okay, so if Black Adam is thinking, I should have clarified with him before we went on air, though, but if he's thinking that we have to wait till 2024 on the CW to get a crossover, I don't know if these shows are going to be around in 2024. I mean, maybe if CW pushes them. But
Netflix will buy it. We're fine.
Well, okay, still, that's a long time for these shows. In some cases, the shows would be over 10 years old. So I don't know. I don't know if they're building for a crisis that's going to happen in 2024, unless they all do a time jump at some point in time. I guess that's possible. But I don't think we're going to get Crisis in real time 2024. I think it's going to happen before that if they are building for it.
They're all just going to get on the Wave Rider and jump to 2024. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, or the Time Bureau windows or whatever.
Yeah, I loved Wally was actually in the premiere and he was dropping some Legends knowledge. You know, he was like, hey, let me take this to Gideon on the Wave Rider. Sorry, we can't take Nora on the Wave Rider because of these negative tachyons and it would interfere with the time drive. It was just fantastic. First off, seeing Wally again and then using that knowledge. It was fantastic. You know, I'm just wondering if somehow these crossovers are going to maybe prevent the crisis that happens in 2024. That is one thing that they've been looking at. You know, they bring that up and they're like, oh, wow, it hasn't changed yet. maybe this crossover will finally change it.
Or lead them down the path to change it in the Flash later on in the year.
That's possible.
Yeah, so thank you for the feedback, and I love interacting with everyone on Twitter and on Facebook. So get in contact. It's great.
Yeah, especially since the next time that we record, we will be talking, as Michelle detailed earlier, we will be talking the premiere episode of Arrow. So we're looking forward to everybody's thoughts about the premiere episodes of the CW shows.
Chris, we're part of a larger podcasting network, aren't we?
That's right. We are part of the Gonna Geek Network. There's 25 plus different shows in the network that cover a variety of topics, a variety of television shows, things like that. We've got shows like ourselves that cover Arrow and Legends Tomorrow, others that cover Game of Thrones. We've got things that talk about tabletop gaming, video gaming. We've got all sorts of topics. We can't very well highlight every show on the network each week, but what we can do is give you a taste of one other show and be like, hey, you guys might want to check this one out. So if you're a fan of the Marvel TV shows, the Marvel movies, things like that, you should go check out Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Episode 252 is about Chapter 15 of Legion. In this episode, the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Director SP, Agent Haley, Agent Lauren, and Consultant Michelle discuss the Legion Season 2, Episode 7, Chapter 15, as well as the weekly Marvel news and listener feedback. The agents discuss the lessons of this episode, moral panics, and how delusions can pile on top of each other. Why Haley wants Carrie and Lenny to have a relationship, their favorite what-if scenarios, how Lauren and Michelle met, and a lot of geeking out over Batwoman. So guys, if you're a big fan of Legion, go check out episode 252 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. over at gonnageek.com. Click on the network button and you can find all of the shows there. Check it out. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. But looking at our time now, it is time to start wrapping things up. So a big thank you to everyone who did participate in our chat room in the live video presentation over at geeks.live. But also a thank you to those of you who download the audio podcast from StarlingTribune.com or catch the video replay over on the Gonna Geek YouTube channel at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
If you happen to have an Amazon device, you can enable our podcast as a skill. Just say the activation word and enable Starling Tribune podcast, and that will come up as a skill, and we'll have all the great ways to actually control play, go back and forth between episodes, and all that good stuff. Also, remember, you can catch us as we record live at www.geeks.live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays, and join our live chat.
We would love to hear from you. We are the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, at Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this brings us to the end of another great episode. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag Bebo want cuddles.
At the Chris Farrell.
Hashtag never forget Hawk Baristas.
And I am at Michelle Ely signing off with hashtag Constantine Cosplay. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at gonnageek.com or check out our archive at starlingtribune.com. Visit gonnageek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.